Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another Reedsy Live. I'm Martin from the gang over at Reedsy, and this is our second First Line Frenzy. It's a very special Reedsy Live webinar where we bring on Rebecca Heyman, one of our OG editors, who will be critiquing opening lines submitted by you, fine folks, and writers just like you. Yes, a very special time. Different. We usually do these a little bit earlier. It's 7 o'clock on the East Coast, 4 p.m. on the Pacific, and midnight here in the UK, almost. So I may be slurring my words a little bit, but I'm really looking forward to this. The last First Line Frenzy we ran back in November, which was a real smash hit. I asked a bunch of you earlier this year what sort of things you'd like to see more in 2020, and one of the things you came back with was something like this. You want to see more sort of interaction, personal attention on work, and I think you really enjoyed the feedback that Becca gave last time, so I'm very happy to bring her back and do another one of these. So if you weren't paying attention for the last few days, I sent out an email asking people to send in their first lines, first sentences to be precise, and what's going to happen is Becca's going to come on, we'll read them out, throw them up on the screen, and then she'll tell you what she thinks, what could be improved, her sort of first gut reaction, and by the end of it, I think we'll all learn a little bit more about what goes into, starting a story with real impact. Okay, well, while we're all waiting for this thing to start, I see people have been letting us know where they're coming from. Well, the one thing I've learned earlier today, Bobby Fallon has told us that Bowling Green, Kentucky is where he or she is, the home of the Corvette. That's the sort of trivia I really like to hear. Jim Waters, Broward County, Florida, fantastic. Who else? I'm just going to go down and look for the sweet trivia now. Heather McDonald from Ottawa, Canada, welcome. Loads of Canadians. We have Laura from Sao Paulo. Guys, if you've got any specific trivia about where you're coming from today, just let me know. While that rolls in, I'll let you know a bit more about how this is going to work. So we had about 500 people send in their first lines, which was an overwhelming response. I spent a good chunk of today just going through those, and I've picked out, I think, about 50, 60 that I've pasted onto a spreadsheet here. As soon as Becca starts, we're going to hit the timer. We're going to try to go for 40 minutes, get through as many as we can. If we don't get to yours, I'm really sorry. It's not an indication of the quality or whether we liked it or disliked it. I was just looking for a range of opening lines that would be a good fodder for discussion. But yeah, we're no doubt going to be hosting more of these, so keep them coming in. And even if yours doesn't get picked, I'm sure you'll be learning a lot from this. Give me a couple of seconds. So yeah, I know it's quite tempting to hit into the comments and keep typing your first line in, but I assure you, no matter how much you type your opening line into the comments, it will not get picked. In fact, if you do, and I was going to pick yours, I'll probably discount it immediately because it's midnight in my time, and my brain isn't quite working the right way. Okay, it's going to be just about 7 o'clock in one moment, at which point I'm going to bring on Becca. We have Lawrence from Warwick, Massachusetts, or Warwick, most likely. There's a bunch of people from Massachusetts, I think, who signed in, who are very happy to see a local gal hosting one of these. Paul from Old Orchard Beach, Maine, USA, I imagine, same neck of the woods. Zach Jackson says, Utah has more recorded British ancestry than any US state. I asked for a fact, and I got a good one, actually. I guess, yeah, most people there are named Smith, so that makes sense. Okay, well, it's now midnight my time. Happy Thursday, me. I'm going to bring on Becca in just a second and get the show on the road. Richard says, sound's not working. Well, anyway, you probably won't hear any advice I have to give to him. Anyway, everyone, please join me in welcoming Rebecca Heyman. Becca, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you tonight?
Yeah, I'm not bad. So remind us, where are you located right now?
I am in Westwood, Massachusetts. Everybody joining us from faraway places where it is not a normal time of evening to be awake and thinking about writing. I'm super honored, and of course, a special hello to all of my fellow New Englanders. I expect to Hear a lot of good things from you. Got to represent.
Oh, fantastic. Before we get started, can you remind us a bit about your background in publishing and as an editor?
Yes. As Martin mentioned, I'm an OG Reedsy editor. I remember talking to the founders of Reedsy about the platform and what it could be and what it should be when I was actually in the hospital after delivering my first son. I was there for a few days, and we got to talking about what an ideal platform for writers looking for really quality services would look like. And so that began my relationship with Reedsy. And several years before that, around 2007, I started my work as a freelance editor while I was completing my graduate work at NYU. Since then, I've just been working with authors and agents and some publishers to prep literature for consumption. I work with a lot of pre-query authors who are getting ready for that big slog of querying agents. About 5 years ago, I started running an event called the Work Conference in New York City. And last year I added an event here in Massachusetts called the Work Retreat. So I'm just trying to bring authors together with the agents and editors who are real experts in their field and who can help them kind of level up in their writing journeys. It looks like my cat is going to join us because there she is. Thank you, Prim.
If I know my audience, they love cat cameos.
Well, that's Primrose, and she, come on. She gets very anxious when I talk quickly or loudly, and so this is right up her alley. So,
all right, fantastic. Well, everyone, I think we're just about ready to go. I'm going to hide my image here. People have commented how it looks like it's midnight over here, so thanks for telling me how you really feel, guys. I'll put the quotes up on there, and if you need someone to talk to, I'll be here. Oh,
sorry. You're going to lay down. Come here. Okay.
Okay, and away we go.
Do it again, Hannah. Okay, so see, it doesn't even matter what the title of this is or what the genre is, because dialogue without context is very hard to connect to, right? This could be a lot of things, and not all of them are pleasant. And so generally, while it can feel at times pithy to start with dialogue, I think you need an especially strong and specific line to pull that off. And this for me isn't quite strong or specific enough.
Cool. That was from Tales of the Green Onyx and Fulsey from H.E. Dunkless, a fantasy book. Okay, next one coming up.
Wow, okay. The buses around my city have a certain life to them, a je ne sais quoi that nobody seems quite able to explain, built up of 1,000 beer cans rolling up and down the aisles, pouring questionable contents across the floors already coated in gum. That's a lot of words. It's a lot to keep track of. I really have to stop and reread and digest in order to understand what's going on here. By the time we're talking about 1,000 beer cans rolling up and down the aisles, the hyperbole has taken over the image so much that I kind of forgot we were on a bus, and I thought maybe we had transitioned into some kind of dilapidated quick march. So this is a little too complex for its own good. I also have a bit of a problem with the phrase "a certain life." Just go for it. If the buses in your city have a personality, or if they have something about them that makes them important or different, I want you to come right out and say it. And the problem that this sentence is having is that it can't just come right out and say what it means.
Cool. That was from Heart of the Tempest, an urban fantasy by Shannon Wallace. Okay, here's something a little bit shorter.
I've been a kleptomaniac for over 100 years. Okay, I'm intrigued by this. I think it's really effective. I think it's a good length. Kleptomaniac is one of those beautifully specific words that only means one thing. And for that reason, it brings a certain immediacy and presence to this sentence that I really, really like. And of course, the big question mark is how can someone have been doing this for a century, right? For over a century. And I think this is intriguing and excellent. And I would be eager to keep reading.
Yeah, that is from a book that sounds mad. Tim Bergstrass has sent that in. It's a horror book with the working title, I Have a Nice Meatloaf in the Oven, which is something that either like make me want to pick it up or just completely toss it away.
The title is a no for me, but the first line is a yes. So you're part of the way there.
Okay, next up, here we go.
Something was about to go down. Pete could tell. So that this is actually two sentences. That comma is actually creating a comma splice, which is when a comma stands in for a mark of end punctuation, like a semicolon or a period. Something was about to go down is an independent clause. Pete could tell is this just sort of truncated clause. You could fix this by switching the position of these two halves and say, Pete could tell something was about to go down, and then it's a little better. You're introducing a tension point when you say something like this, which I find really interesting. And so, I think if you reverse the order here, you have a pretty solid opening sentence.
Cool. That was from the Tanglewood Twins' Cult of the Raven, a middle grade mystery by James Phillips. Yeah,
for middle grade, I think that's a great opening. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, for some reason, like the comma almost felt like Pete could tell was almost like a dialogue tag, in a sense.
Right, and so this happens a lot, right? I think some people hear the narration of their novel like dialogue or almost like what's the word? A voiceover in a movie. And so it tends to have the texture of dialogue on paper, and the editing process should rinse that out pretty thoroughly.
Cool. Next one.
In the half hour it took Kit to walk to her nearest neighbor's place, she passed 6 abandoned houses, none of them sitting squarely on their foundations. I love this. I think it's really evocative. The feeling of isolation for Kit is really subtle, but it's there. And the sense of dilapidation in her neighborhood, in his or her neighborhood, her neighborhood, is really nicely done. The idea that the houses are abandoned and also kind of, creeping toward the ground, sort of returning to the earth. I like where this is going. I think this is great. And not for nothing, this is a long sentence, but it's easy to keep track of because the author has organized it really, really well.
All right, that was from Rachel Yobbs. The book is called The House with No Nails, and it's a piece of speculative fiction. Cool. All right, coming up next.
I was 56 when I became an orphan. Oh, that's heartbreaking. Yeah, I mean, there's a confessional feel to this and a tenderness to it that I think is really attractive. And I also think this is relatable for a lot of readers in a lot of different ways. And so, the author is giving us their specific experience by activating that age, but also speaking to a more universal theme or motif in the sense of losing both parents. So I think this is a really good line. Yeah.
Yeah, that's from Pushed Off the High Dive, creative nonfiction memoir.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
Like I guess a memoir, I was sort of, there's always like creative in some sense, I suppose, because it's not exactly a dry history sometimes. Is that a distinction you feel that's the creative nonfiction memoir? Is that a distinction that's a bit unnecessary?
Well, it certainly brings, on query, it would bring up a lot of questions. A memoir should be based in truth. And so to say it's creative nonfiction implies a higher degree of poetic license than we might expect to find in a memoir. So I would be a little careful tossing that word around. If memoir is your genre, just say memoir. There's no reason to, bring up questions that don't ever need to be asked.
Okay. Yeah, like I was actually watching a talk show here in the UK last Friday, and Jim Carrey was on talking about his upcoming memoir, which is also a novel, and it just came across as absolutely mad. So yeah, it definitely it is his autobiography, but all the characters' names are different. And
I find that very tiresome, and I will say that thinly veiled autobiography as fiction is one of the worst genres that I see in my work. And I can always sense it right away. It's very easy to tell when you've just, changed your sister's name from Jane Doe to Fane Coe. There's a certain divisiveness or artifice to the work in those instances that I think they can sense it. I think readers are too smart for that.
Okay, I've got here this one.
Sylvano, commander of the cyborg ship Freedom, cursed as he watched the shuttle escape through an artificial rift in space. This is a lot of information about Sylvano, also about the Freedom. I don't really feel invested in the escaping shuttle. So I guess my first question is, does this book start in the right place? This might be clarified in the next couple of sentences. And in space opera, which this obviously is, we expect to be a little confused at the outset because we know we have to get familiar with the world. I don't dislike this as a first line. I'm not in love with space opera as a genre, so for me, it doesn't leap off the page. But I think this is a well-organized and well-articulated first line.
Cool. Yeah, as you're right there, it's science fiction, but fantasy romance as well. Sylvano's Redemption by Dana Hone. Cool. Moving on swiftly.
In the conversation they wouldn't be able to have, Ren would apologize for killing him. I love this line. I like how twisty that first phrase is. In the conversation they wouldn't be able to have. The way that introductory phrase sets up, we know because of our reading brains understand grammar even if we can't articulate it. And so we know that this is a sort of cause and effect line. We know that it's an if-then. And so we understand that there's a fantasy or an imagined reality, and then there's the reality that would occur within that. And I love the way that this plays on that sort of inversion of expectations. I think this is great.
That's Ellen Liang with Eventide Lantern. That's a fantasy novel. Getting it's like quite nice to have like something that's sort of heavily in a genre, but like you can't quite tell with the first line sometimes.
It's funny because my first thought when I read this was the wonderful novel by Karen McManus, One of Us is Lying, and she just came out with the sequel, One of Us is Next, which is on my TBR, but I haven't read it yet. Though I'm really looking forward to it. And there's that. All the narrators in that book have an awareness of themselves within the novel, and it's really addictive to read. So I think this is super successful. I love this.
Cool. Coming up next, a bit of a change of pace.
The translation hit Detective Tom Radenauer's computer screen at 8:30 a.m. I was counting what percentage of words in this sentence were devoted to naming the character. And indeed, it is 40%. And that is too high a percentage for something like naming a character. I would like to see the translation activated in sentence 1. I think that could help bring some needed specificity to this. Unless Tom thinks of himself as Detective Tom Radenauer, I don't think it's necessary to give us this full name. If you want to evoke intimacy with your reader, which, hint, hint, you do, you have to create closeness instead of distance. And using a full name, first name, last name in an opening sentence suggests that we don't know this person. And even though obviously by nature of the fact that we're opening your book for the first time, we want to feel kinship. We want to feel closeness. And so using a very formal iteration of a name is a way to undo some of that closeness. I would reorganize this a little bit, and I would bring the specificity of the translation into the fore.
So would you like pretty much just cut down the actual naming of the character, like the translation hit Rad's computer screen at 8
Detective Radnauer. Easy. Yeah. Or if this isn't in a professional context, Tom. I mean, and we can find out later that he's a detective, and we can find out that people call him Rad when someone calls him Rad. There's just no need to sort of, there's too much distance here in the lens when you pull out that far. I would rather be in this moment with him when he reads the translation than we're starting a little too far away from sort of the moment of impetus, and I'd like to get a little closer.
Yeah, as you may have guessed, that was a police procedural, Go Back by Pat Obermeyer. Cool. The next one here.
I don't know whether or not this name is Neelam or Nilam. I'm going to go Neelam. For all Neelam knew, his head could be cracking open. I think the way that this evokes violence without articulating violence is interesting, but I'm not in love with the sort of vagueness of a lot of what's going on here. I'd like to be more mired in the sensation that Neelam is experiencing. I don't know how your head could be cracking open and you could not know. So if the sensation that he has is that he's having some kind of cranial trauma, I think you can be more specific and direct about that. This is a bit coy, and I'd like it to be less coy.
Cool. Yeah, it could potentially be. I read it as almost like Neelam or whoever was having like a terrible headache. Like for all they knew, like it was so bad his head could be cracking open.
Yeah, but even as a little piece of hyperbole, it's more effective as a sensation. Like tell me where this sort of frisson of pain is, if that's what it is, right? If it's a migraine. Tell me, bring the sensation alive instead of relying on something that's almost too dramatic to be effective.
Cool.
If things are going to be visceral, I like them to be very visceral and really in the body. If you're starting in the body, be in the body. I think this can be more powerful.
That was Drop in the Blue, YA Fantasy from Victoria in the UK. Next one here.
Stepping on a Dead Man's Face did not reduce, I'm going to butcher this, I'm sorry, Aslan O'Malley's interview jitters. This is upsetting a little. Stepping on a dead man's face. I assume this is a picture of someone who's dead. Maybe. I don't know what. I am having trouble connecting the first part of the sentence, the cause and the effect, right? I'm not sure what stepping on a dead man's face would ever have to do with interview jitters, unless you were, interviewing for a position on SEAL team and you were part of the team that initially, captured or killed this person being stepped on, whose image is being stepped on. This just doesn't, it doesn't make me partial to this protagonist in any specific way. And I think we want to feel close to a protagonist, even if it's someone who's problematic down the road. I'm just not sure about this. This makes me go, huh? And I think we want the questions that are inspired by our first line to draw us in instead of stop us in our tracks.
Yeah, I'm a bit curious myself. This is a thriller, a work in progress from Alexa Patchett. Alexa, if you're watching, let us know whether, in fact,
picture.
Yeah, are they standing on a picture, or is this like an American Psycho type thing where someone has actually done something terrifically violent before they've gone in for an interview? So let us know that one. It could be even more terrifying than that. Here we go.
The forbidden note made its presence known in my breast pocket. That's a lot of agency for a piece of paper. How does a piece of paper make its presence known? I don't know. this again, it draws up some questions of logistics that I'm not sure are totally warranted. I think you could be more effective by getting more specific about the language in the note. And again, focusing not on this inanimate object, but of the sensation that this inanimate object inspires in an actual embodied experience. So talk to me about the words that feel like they're, burning a brand into your chest. I'm more interested in a character's experience than in the circumstances around that character, and what a character is wearing or what's in a character's pocket is part of that character's circumstances, not that character's personhood. And I'm interested in the personhood of whoever I'm reading about.
That was from Alex and Theo, a queer historical romance, which makes me think of Sarah Waters. That was Megan Humphreys from Sheffield.
I'm into it. Like, I love the genre. I love a forbidden note. All the illicit letters. But get inside the experience of carrying something dangerous instead of skimming the surface of the dangerous thing itself.
Just to answer a question that's being thrown around in the comments right now. Yep, folks sent in their lines earlier this week up until a few hours ago. I picked them based on ones I think there's going to be a range of interest for. And no, nobody knew whether their first lines were going to get picked until just now, for example.
And I haven't seen any of them.
Yeah, this is the first time I've ever seen any of them. Here we go.
Now I know what you're thinking. Probably not, right? I like the boldness that the narrative persona seems to possess, and I like the closeness that comes from this character assuming they know what I'm thinking. But I also think you sort of toe a dangerous line when you tell your reader about the assumptions your character is making about them. I don't know. I would give it a solid passing grade, but not an A. I think I'd have to know a little bit more. I would like a little more information.
Yeah, I think that's got sent to us as a part of a longer extract. I think starting with, now I know what you're thinking, and then some explanation.
And it needed to be truncated because this was the actual first sentence?
Yeah.
Aha. Yeah, so first sentence is first sentence, right? You can't hover over a reader's shoulder and say, but wait, just get to page 25 and you'll see it gets really good, right? You sometimes only have one line. And I think that one of the really nice things that we see in First Line Frenzy, so we've been doing this for a while, is that you can actually be incredibly effective with just one line, and you can say a lot about your book. So yeah, you can. Yeah, next. Okay.
Well, I've got a comment here from John Daly that sort of ties into a nice bit of promotion we have to get to anyway.
Hi, John.
I've attended 2 of Rebecca's The Work conferences. She is great, as is the invited staff from the publishing world. 5 stars from John Curtis Daly. At this point in time, I believe you have something to sort of share with the folks here.
Yeah, that is a really, really nice segue. And shout out to you, Kurt. We missed you. As I mentioned, I run a writer's conference and a writer's retreat annually. And the next event is at the end of March. It's up here in Massachusetts, and it's the Work Retreat, which is an incredible weekend for writers who are still very much in process. The Work Retreat pairs you, or rather groups you, with 4 other authors who are working in your genre. And you are led through a series of critique workshops by a publishing house editor or an agent throughout the weekend. We also do panels with the whole faculty. We cater all your meals. We have an amazing candy buffet. We give you all the pens you could possibly want in your lifetime. We do a mindfulness meditation for creatives workshop. You'll do a workshop with me about finding the soul of your plot. It's just a weekend designed to help you get immersed in your writing. It's an amazing time, and we do limit attendance pretty strictly to 30 authors, and that ensures that our faculty of 6 editors and agents is always, available to you, and never sort of overrun. You should never feel like you are battling for the attentions of our faculty. So if you are in process with your manuscript, all you need to apply to the work retreat is 50 pages. You'll need 50 pages for the retreat. The application is just a 5-page excerpt sent to me so that I can see what you're working on, and get you grouped in with the right critique workshop. But all of the information is on the website, theworkconference.com. And I would love to hear from you. If you apply and you mention this broadcast, you will save $100 on the price of your ticket.
Cool. I put a link to that right in the comments there. So yeah, when you email her, just mention this Reedsy Live and you get a sweet discount on that. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for letting me talk about that. I love these work events. They are the best fun. They're just amazing. So please check them out.
Awesome. Okay, back to business.
Back to business.
Next one here.
Last night, while Ghana was sleeping, wicked men shot their way into an orphanage in the city of Takoradi and made away with 4 girls. I like this. This is very, I like the distance between the narrative persona and Ghana. The narrative persona is aware of what happened in the city, right? But we know that Ghana was sleeping while it all took place. But the narrative persona gives us a nice sense of a sort of blanket of awareness about this world. There's a nice authority to the voice. I quite like this. I mean, it's possible that this is Ghana next day, and this is actually third person limited and quite close, and this is actually Ghana's thought process. But I think I'm right that it's not, that the narrative persona has this slightly wider view of the world at large. Can we ask the author to chime in if they're here?
Yeah, Obed Arma, if you're listening here, let us know a little bit more about this. We're keen to know.
What's the genre on this one?
It's a literary thriller, and the title is A Month to Remember and Forget.
I'm intrigued by this. I like this a lot.
Cool. Yeah, this is one of my favorites. In my spreadsheet, I put it in bold for must.
What did you talk about it, Martin? If this were your, what would be your first line frenzy critique on this?
This one, I don't know. There's just something aware, like I don't know, just a sort of pace to it, just sort of unfolds a bit, and and made away with 4 girls. Like for some reason that sort of like really hit me, really got me like hooked in and want. There's a fair amount of world building put in here. There's an orphanage, there's a city, there's 6 sleeping, and 4 girls missing. There's like a lot going on in that first line.
Yeah, I mean, look, it activates the primary conflict immediately, and that's hard to do, right? It's hard to be this specific about your conflict in one sentence, and especially the first sentence. But this is just, really effective and artfully put together.
Nice. Well done, Obed. Let us know a bit more if you're listening right now. In the meantime, here's our next one.
Speed is my addiction, but my Tad says it's another killer he must curb. Huh? Speed is my addiction, but my Tad says it's another killer he must curb. I have no idea what these words mean in this order. I don't know what a Tad is. Is this a typo for dad? I have no idea what that means.
Oh, potentially. Well, I checked it, and this is exactly what was submitted.
Yeah, I think this might be a typo. If it's not a typo, then this is just a lapse in my knowledge of, I guess, the English language. I don't know what this means.
Yeah, because it's a police procedural. I took it to mean this is like some sort of police jargon, potentially. Speed is either literally going fast or the drug speed. Not sure.
Yeah, also really, you know what? I hadn't quite gotten there yet, but you're right. I have no idea what this sentence is about.
Oh, someone has just said, let's see. T.A. Gould, Tad is Welsh father.
Okay. Well, can you put it back up, Martin?
Yep, give me a second.
But my Tad says it's another killer he must curb. Still confusing, still unclear, still vague about whether or not we're talking about road speed, rate of motion, or speed the drug. Yep, if we have this many questions in one sentence, I think the sentence needs to be re-examined for sure.
But the good thing I found out is that there's a fair amount of people tuned in right now who are fairly familiar with Welsh dialect, so that's fantastic.
Right. Thank you. I had no idea. I can say with a lot of confidence that I don't think in my 12 years of editing I've ever had a manuscript across my desk with Welsh dialect. So I learned something new today, and thank you.
Well, anyway, Roland, I see that you're in here. So yeah, let us know whether speed is speed or speed is street for drugs. Okay, got another one coming up here.
No house is ever truly empty, as any child will tell you. I love that. In fact, it has to be empty if it ever hopes to be filled with magic. No house is ever truly empty, as any child will tell you, is a delight. I love the first part of this sentence, but that M dash is incorrect, right? I think the mark of punctuation you're looking for here is a semicolon to show contrast, because the author is saying, in fact, we start by being told no house is ever truly empty, but it has to be empty if it ever hopes to be filled with magic. So I think a semicolon instead of the M dash will make the contrast between these two clauses more clear and more effective. But I really like this a lot. Oh, Prim's going. Bye, Prim.
Yeah, that's a YA or children's fantasy novel by Anne Heloin called The Incredible Adventures of Penelope Little.
I love it. I love the title. I find this quite charming. But yeah, just knock a semicolon in there, and I think we'll be on far better terms.
Roland Clark, author of the Speed and Tad, has got back. Speed is road speed, and her dad is a cop. Okay, so that sort of gives it.
Right. Still, I believe that it was referred to as a killer, and a killer. Okay. So still, I just think because the language brings up so many questions, and so many of the words, or rather two very key words in the sentence can be interpreted in two very different ways. I think to be clear in your intentions requires a little bit of fiddling with the way that sentence is coming through.
Cool. Next one here.
Binky claws had been gift. Let's just start a list of words that I'm not familiar with that are coming up today. I assume that gift is some kind of slang.
Oh, it's gypped, I think is what they're going for.
Gypped. Huh.
Which is, from my experience, from my understanding, is not really a term that should be used these days. It means like swindled or something. It comes from like gypsy.
It's funny. I'm not sure that I've ever seen that word written.
Yeah, I had to look up it. I think it's technically spelled with a Y, as someone is pointing out in the.
I've never seen this. And look, which is not to say it can't be spelled this way or that this isn't the correct spelling. It's certainly not something I've ever seen on the page, and I think I have seen the word gypped in writing before, but maybe not expressed this way. Either way, I think there are better words that are perhaps more specific and slightly less crude that might be helpful here. But I also feel like this is a tell me more situation where it's very concise and we understand that someone's been swindled, binky claws, as it were. I'm not sure this is drawing anyone in especially quickly. We might need a little bit more information and maybe a little more finesse on the diction choices.
Yeah, that was from Binky Claws Ready to Fly, a middle grade novel. So I think, use of that term might be, not so advisable.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, well, speaking of derogatory terms, this next one.
Oh, no. Oh, okay. You gave me like a little scare there. What are you asking me to read on the internet? Francis Edelbutt was ugly. Okay. Again, this has a lot of subjectivity in it, right? Like who's the narrator and who decides and why is this important and what is the context and how is this true? And I mean specificity overall, right? If there's something about this person that is deemed aesthetically unpleasant, I would rather have you be specific about it instead of using a word that's actually really hurtful to a lot of people. Which isn't to say we can't use words that are difficult, right? But I think talking about a specific feature could be really powerful here. And if Frances is our POV character, right, the person that we're actually focused on emotionally, I would want to hear about his feelings about that feature more than I want to hear about a judgment of that feature if I don't even really know what it is. So again, move towards specificity. When you're talking about bodies or embodied experience, get specific. I think that's a big takeaway from tonight.
Okay, that one was Christopher Columbus, New Adult Fiction by Olivia Heisey. Okay.
New adult is okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so here's the thing about new adult. You are either writing YA or you're writing adult, and the decision about new adult is in some ways a marketing choice more than a genre determination, right? So new adult is not a genre, it's an audience, but reaching that audience is more a marketing decision than a generic decision. So we have certain publishing companies like Wednesday Books that are really focused on telling stories that have similarities to YA in terms of conflict, but these conflicts are transposed to slightly older characters, right, in their 20s. I would encourage you to decide if you're writing YA or adult and firmly go in that direction.
All right, cool. Next one.
I'll take his brains and heart, I whispered to my sister when the funeral director presented us with the ashes of our father. Boom. So this is like a situation where starting with dialogue is actually really great. It's a weird little snippet of dialogue, right? It's not expected at all. And we're immediately brought into the setting, right? Funeral director. We know that this person and his or her sister are sort of experiencing this loss, but at the same time, there's this kind of gallows humor here, which I find really appealing. So I love this, and I would totally keep reading. What is this? What is this from?
This is Black Sheep, a memoir by Lisa Luca, a true story of family acceptance.
Okay, all right, I'm in it. Memoir is not always my favorite. I sometimes find them a little unnecessary, but this is really a nice entry point, and I would be interested in this.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of my favorite opening lines from Ian Banks's The Crow Road. It starts with it was the day my grandmother exploded, and it goes into a scene about how they'd forgotten to take her pacemaker out before they cremated her, and everyone was like gathered around there, which is a great way to start.
That's a great start. Yes, that is a great start.
Okay, we've got a few more minutes. We may run a little bit late, but I just want to cram a few more in here.
Somewhere in the house, a window shattered, spraying glass in a wide arc. Okay, so the problem I'm having is that the vagueness of somewhere in the house is a direct contrast to seeing how the glass falls. So where is the narrator in relation to this moment of impact? I have that question. And when are we in relation to the moment of impact? Is it happening like right in this moment? And if so, how can we simultaneously know that the shattering happens somewhere, but not right in front of us, but also know how the glass falls? So I have there's some logical dissonance here that I would like to see alleviated.
That was Kelly's Con, a mystery by Diane Ames. Okay, next one.
The ringing of the phone Why is that?
Short for telephone.
Shortened. Yeah, phone is its own word now. Even though if it's a shortened version of telephone, it's certainly accepted in the general lexicon these days. If it has its own entry in the OED, you don't have to show that it was once truncated. The ringing of the phone woke Brendan up from the soundest sleep he'd had all month. Well, this is a waking up one, which I think anyone who's tuned into First Line Frenzy, either here or with me on Twitter, knows that I don't like these. It is always a cliche to have your character waking up first thing in your book. And I don't care what wakes them up. I don't care what they were dreaming about. Move 10 minutes into the future of this novel and start there.
Okay, it's next one here.
A middle-aged teacher lectured how a guard instructed inmates, but his babble bounced off our zombie ears. So I don't mind this analogy, but it's clunky. The execution here is not great. And I'm intrigued about whether or not these are actual zombie ears. Is this zombie school? Or is this sort of metaphorical zombies, just really tired kids? And if so, is that the most effective way to articulate that? I don't think so. I think this one still needs a bit of spit and polish.
Yeah, it's a weird one for me as well, because there seems to be two levels of instructions. The teacher lectured a guard on how they instruct inmates.
Mm-hmm.
Really stopped there.
I like the idea. I mean, there's a clear sort of tone when we're comparing students to prisoners, right, and teachers to guards. But I think this just isn't, the execution isn't quite elegant enough.
That one's from Everything's Crooked, new adult, from Franco, no last name redacted.
If we're students and we're in school, I think it's probably YA, but that's just my guess.
Oh yeah, because I actually thought for a second it was, oh yeah. Okay, yeah, they should be a lot older.
I mean, unless zombie school starts when you're like 18. I don't know. I've never been.
Yeah, I guess, if you're in college, you probably should be paying attention, kids. Here's the next one.
Sophia Kasperatus was feeling optimistic. Whatever I die of, they'll find a cure for it the next day. Okay. The dialogue itself is awkwardly structured because of the placement of that preposition. There's distance because you're giving us this first name, last name situation. I understand what this is trying to evoke, and there's a little bit of a sort of cheeky, if this is her optimism, what's her pessimism kind of question. But I think this needs a little more refinement. Again, this is an execution issue. The idea is good, but the execution is not.
Okay, and our final one, oh, just wait. That one was from Murder on Parthenonos, a mystery from Susan Alexander. On Parthenonos. Sounds like... I
think there is maybe a Greek motif.
Or maybe. It almost feels like some sort of ancient Greek planet. Unless the Parthenonos is a sort of different place that I'm thinking of than the Parthenon. But yeah, I like it as well. Okay, this is our very last one.
Both the horse and the rider presented a pitiful sight. Okay, I think this can be more specific, I think you can paint this for us with a more nuanced brush. What does it mean to present pitifully, both when you're a horse and when you're a rider? I think you can give us more. Do they look wilted? Is the rider slumped in the saddle? Is the horse emaciated? Are they covered in sweat? Is the horse frothing? I mean, there are so many ways to show us this, right? Instead of telling, and that's kind of what this one comes down to. You're telling us that they're pitiful instead of showing us, and of course, we would always rather see it than be told about it later.
Okay, and that is our very last one, guys. But before you rush off, Just wait. Let's get us both on here. Thank you so much for going through these. I think we went through, I want to say at least 30 or so. But thank you very much. Before we head off, I'm going to post Becca's Reedsy profile in the comments. She is, of course, an editor here at Reedsy, available to work on manuscripts. What sort of projects do you think you'll be looking for in the coming months?
As I think I mentioned last time, I still am super on the hunt for really good romance. I would love to see more LGBTQIAP+ in my queries. I just finished reading I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver, and it was such a wonderful, moving queer YA romance, and I just loved it. And I would love the chance to work on some of these stories. So romance of all stripes, from Regency to YA and everything in between. I love a good literary thriller that's really well plotted and well paced. I like historical fiction. Less Russian historical fiction. I've seen a lot of Russia in my inbox lately, and I'd like to move towards some maybe other parts of the world. And what else would I love to see? I always take a look at literary fiction. You know, my academic days have certainly given me the academic pedigree to address literary fiction, and it is always a fun challenge to work on. So, you know, I want to see the projects that you're passionate about, because if I can meet you in that passion, then I think, you know, that's always a good place to start the editorial relationship.
Cool. So yeah, head to her profile there. I'm going to follow this up with an email in a few days, and maybe early next week before I can get back to you guys. But with that, I'll have a link and a transcript that you can go back and read through Becca's comments. And of course, go to theworkconference.com to check out Becca's conference late next month. Remember, if you mentioned that you found it here on Reedsy Live, she'll give you $100 off. Anyway, my brain is dead. Thank you so much, Becca, for joining us. I hope you'll do this again with us another time.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for staying up. For those of you here in the UK or further east, thanks for staying up this late with me. Let's all get to bed now. All right, guys. See ya.